How does your fitness style complement your motivation? Today, we're going to be going over the topic of what training styles fit you. And I know this is interesting when you hear this because you're thinking, well, I can do a lot of different things. Yes, you can, and that everyone can. But there's seasons and reasons for different styles of training. So there's a lot to cover here, and I want to bring up some good topic points. So, how many times have you guys caught yourself preparing for something or trying something and you're like, you know what, this is just not for me? It happens all the time. You start a membership somewhere and you start training there, and after a while, you're like, I don't want to be here anymore. I just don't feel like this really pushes me. Now, there can be a lot of variables to this: coaches, facilities, how welcome do you feel at that place? But there's other things as well. Is there a style that really resonates with you? Is there a style that fits your needs best? And that's kind of what I want to talk about today. So, um, everyone has a reason why they train, right? Your reason might be to get in shape, or you just want to stay healthy. But when it comes to learning about specifics, there is many different reasons why you train that way. It might be because you generally just want to get stronger, or you want to improve your conditioning, right? So those are two train of thoughts. People think either strength or conditioning. And then you kind of find those niches in between, whether it's Pilates, yoga, or anything of that sort. You know that there are specialties that you can really focus on that become popular. And kudos to those styles of training because they've done a great job at utilizing a space. Okay. So let's go over this. Let's go over strength training. What does strength training really do? Okay. Now, if we're talking about what training does from a weightlifting standpoint, obviously improves musculature, improves resistance, improves bone density, right? You're going to feel stronger over time, right? The things about strength training that really complements you, this is a person that wants to boost your confidence. Uh, Strength training really does boost your confidence. I mean, think about the times you go to the gym and you see yourself in the mirror lifting heavier weight. It does something to you, right? It speaks to you. I'm getting stronger. I feel stronger. And you might do something that resonates with that throughout your day. Maybe your job entails that you need to be physically demanding, and you go do something and you're like, wow, this isn't as hard as it used to be. So you start thinking about those things, right? You see someone your age struggling with something, you're like, you know what, I can do that. So that starts really separating yourself visually from what you think you can do to thinking I can do more. So it's a really great way to boost your confidence. But what are the pros and cons of this? The pros is that strength training is needed all across the board. Everyone needs strength training. And I would say other pros are is that you can get really creative, right? You can be focusing on hypertrophy, meaning growing muscle tissue. You can be focusing on strength. You can be focusing on power, so you can be really powerful with your movements. You can do Olympic training, right? So you can get under the barbell, do snatches, do hand cleans, that kind of stuff. Um, and then you can really focus on really developing muscle, right? Maybe you're insecure about a body part and you really want to develop that body part. You can do that. And that's the beauty of strength training is that it's been around forever. Everyone does it, and there's multiple gyms that have the access to it. There's a lot of equipment, you know, that you have free weights, and me, I'm a big proponent of free weights. I love free weights. My gym is out of all free weights. But then you also have machines, and machines are not bad. Machines have great ways of targeting muscle tissues that you can't target without, you know, specific angles and resistance. So you have two different train of thoughts. What are the cons? Well, the cons is that sometimes strength training doesn't really complement other needs that you might need. Maybe you need to work on flexibility. Maybe you need to work on mobility. So strength training sometimes, because you're really focusing on getting stronger, you don't really have the stress to adapt into new styles that you should be targeting on. So you can really become redundant with the style of training. You have to think that, for example, if you drive 4 hours, you get out of your car and you feel like you need a stretch. Same thing with strength training. If you are constantly targeting that muscle tissue and you're not doing the opposite, you're going to then maybe build some imbalances. And everyone has imbalances. I'm not we're asymmetrical. We all have little things that, aren't perfect across the board. But you have to understand that that's how we're built, and there's always going to be things for us to work on, and that's a good thing. That's not a bad thing. So there's always room for improvement, right? But when we think about the psychological portion of it, right, improves confidence, and this is a great thing. But then we also talk about, well, you might be lacking mobility, you might be lacking flexibility, and this is where we get into the word functional, right? And this is the functional training style. What does functional training style do for me? Well, functional training style, I think that it's a word that's constantly repeatedly used, and people have different understanding of what functional training is. But I think that functional patterns is something that everyone should be lifting already. I think that when I think strength training, I already think functional because that's the way I like to program. But I also understand that a lot of people love machines and a lot of people love to do their back squats, do their hack squats, do their RDLs on the Smith machine, do Smith machine and that kind of stuff, leg press, which is great. Has a purpose, right? But from a functional standpoint, you have to think about longevity. You have to think about that if we're constantly using this tissue, we also need to move in different ways, right? And a lot of times, a lot of people don't think that they need to target those muscles in those specific ways. So you should be training in a functional way. I believe everyone has a lot of benefit to this. This is how you avoid injuries. Those common injuries might be tight hip flexors, tight erectors, lack of mobility when it comes to your upper back, shoulder mobility, right? You constantly do shoulder presses. There's going to get to a point where, well, what can I do to improve my range of motion? And the range of motion is really what we're focusing on when it comes to functional fitness. We're talking about how functional you can be in terms of lifting certain weights and moving in certain patterns. And in exercise physiology, we talk about targeting different sling systems, which is an operation of that we have in our body. We have systems that work in patterns, right? So you have to think about, like, when you're running, there's a reason why we need to do an arm swing. Like, we've talked about this before. There's a reason why your glutes need to properly fire when you're running. There's a reason to why your core should be tight when you're doing certain exercises. And when I think about functional fitness, I also think that when I'm constantly working with a client and I'm training a client, I'm trying to make sure that they do every movement with an awareness to their core. And this might be something that kind of gets overlooked with strength training because you're thinking just about lifting heavy weight. For example, a lot of people don't think that, or maybe that's not even an idea, that the bench press is a rotational movement, right? Because you're flat on a bench and you're moving the weight up and down. But if I was to take out that barbell and if I have two dumbbells and I bring one at a time, there is rotation in my spine, right? And there's a reason why we should be doing one arm, single arm dumbbell press. There's a reason why we should do single leg exercises. And think about really targeting those movements to improve strength unilaterally. So you want to work on one limb, then the other limb after working both limbs. So I typically tell people, when you work both limbs, make sure you target one limb at a time after. It's a great way to complement what you're already doing. You're always going to be stronger when it's two limbs. Okay? So we think about the pros and cons to this is, Functional fitness might not always target hypertrophy, right? So if I'm, and what I mean by that is it might not always target trying to put on muscle mass. You can, you can do it by doing a variety of things, and if your programming is done to the T and is done with some details and some emphasis, yeah, you will target this. But for the most part, a lot of people don't think about, doing TRX knee tucks or working on the proper core engagement as something that's really going to get them to build musculature. And it does work on musculature, but it doesn't really build it in terms of putting stress to that area. And this is where we talk about hypertrophy, time under tension, and that kind of stuff. And it's really important, but it gets overlooked, right? Because functional fitness, we're typically focusing on movements and patterns that you don't typically do, right? So let's grab, for example, if we're doing functional fitness, we might go into a lateral lunge with a reach over our head, going to this side to really target stretching the obliques. That way you don't get tight. Or someone that works in an office and is constantly in this position, right? We want to make sure we open that position up. So we're targeting the rear delts a lot more sufficiently because we want to make sure that we kind of counteract the stuff that they do throughout the day. So that's what we think about functional fitness. But functional fitness is one of those things that it's a feel good workout. It makes you feel better at the end of the day. So again, we're talking about strength training being your confidence booster, then functional fitness being your feel good. So I like to target those two because they make you feel really good, right? So it complements each other. Now let's get into the HIIT interval training. So what's HIIT? HIIT is high intensity interval training. What do we think about this? What is high intensity interval training? Well, this is exercises that give you more of an instant gratification. Okay, these are if you like HIIT, you're a person that likes to feel the workout. Like you want to feel like you sweat, like your sweating was going somewhere, right? Like you want to feel that your workout was worth it. You're like, I broke a nice sweat in that workout, and that session really made me feel like I did something, right? I was able to do some intervals, and those intervals really challenged me. So it gives you that instant gratification feeling. It makes you feel good from a standpoint that it makes you feel like you achieved something short, quick, and you did something hard. So it's great from that standpoint. What does it do? Also, it improves your cardiovascular fitness. So it helps you get your heart rate to high points, and then you get to recover, and then you go at and repeat that cycle. So this is great. This is something that it's needed across the board. Everyone should be doing a little bit of HIIT, and it has great benefits. So this is a reason that you'll see that people really enjoy, those that really like hit workouts are typically people who are going to like more of those styles. So if you like going to Orange Theory, if you probably like F45. If you like F45, you'll probably like Barry's, because they all work in that same spectrum, right? HIIT, even some Pilates, right? Some hot Pilates, some hot yoga. It's challenging in that sense. It makes you feel like, man, I accomplished something hard in this session. So it's not always going to have those benefits of maybe growing muscle tissue. So you probably see that, yeah, you've been working at this for a while, you've been doing HIIT, but you're not getting the benefits of really stressing a specific muscle tissue for it to grow. So it may keep you lean. You might like to do this kind of workout because it keeps you and maintains that standardized fitness, but it doesn't really improve you more than what you can do. If it's only 45 minutes, you have to think that your body adapts, and you can possibly push to 60, even 90 minutes. And you get to now the other portion where it becomes long endurance training. And we'll talk about that. So again, the pros and cons is that it's efficient, it's quick, it burns tons of calories. But the cons to this, I would say, it doesn't it doesn't give you enough time to rest. If you're doing HIIT back to back, back to back, I'm talking about Monday, Wednesday, Friday, Thursday. That's 4 days doing the same style of training. You can feel a little bit tight. This is where you're thinking, man, I would like to do something more functional, take my time more to start feeling better because I'm doing all this hard work, but it's also putting stress on certain areas where I'm not going to be able to recover. Another thing, it's really taxing on the central nervous system. So you might feel a little sluggish, a little more tired because you have to think about what are you telling your brain to do? Your brain is like, okay, I need to give high output for this short time, and it's not giving me the recovery that I should have, right? And you have to think about, when do people typically do these HIIT workouts, these HIIT workouts? They do them in the morning. They often do it fasted, or they do it in the afternoon after a long day. And you go into the weight room at 7 o'clock or after work at 5, and you're beat. You're beat. You probably don't have the warm up that you would essentially like. If your warm up's 5 minutes, it's probably not going to target everything you need to target before you start feeling good before the workout. So you have to think about all these little factors with all these things. The last thing I would say is, the last style of training is really endurance and cardio. So this is an interesting one, right? Because I call this is the Zen state of fitness. This is the flow of fitness. This is the people that like training this way like to find a point in their workout where they get lost in the workout. And you might have heard of runner's high. What is runner's high? What you have to experience it by putting yourself through it. You aren't really gonna find that in things that have a lot of rest intervals. I often tell people, and I like to make this comparison about flow state and what is flow state. Is I often ask people, well, when you graduated and you walked across the stage, did you ever hear your name being called? And a lot of people say, no, I've never heard my name actually being called. And the reason why this is because you were so focused on shaking your principal's hand or whoever it was and not falling that you never got to hear your name in the first place. And this intense style of focus, this intense way of really concentrating is what develops that flow state. Okay. And it feels great. It's a great thing to experience. But it's very difficult to get to this point if you're constantly having to rest and go at it again, rest and go at it again. So you will probably won't feel this with other styles of training. So I would say that Zen state of training, endurance training and cardiovascular fitness, that it is long term from a sample of training. So 60 and more minutes, you're gonna feel this. Or maybe you go for a 3 mile run, you go for a 10K, or maybe you go for a half marathon. This longer duration style of training is where you will feel this. So that endurance training really develops that psychological component of you feeling like you get immersed in whatever you're doing. But there's some things to that, right? What are some pros? It improves cardiovascular health. I mean, in shape that you get from doing long endurance training is something that you can't mimic. You need to stress yourself out for long durations of time like that in order for you to really get the cardio benefits of that. What's the benefits of it? It gives you not only endurance, cardiovascular health, but it really allows you to immerse yourself in that style of training. But there is negatives. There is negatives to every style of training. There's cons, right? And I would say that the negatives could be is that, like anything else, without proper recovery, you can run into injuries. A lot of people that are runners, you know that you probably dealt with ankle, knee, hip injuries, maybe lower back is starting to bothering you, and this is because lack of functional training. So I'm I want to say I'm biased here, but any strength coach, any trainer can always agree with me on this because all these things need functionality to it. Everything that you're doing needs a complement, and the complement is functional training or strength training. So maybe because you go run a 10 miler or you go run for an hour, it's going to take you a longer time to recover, right? Probably that day you're probably going to feel tired if you're not fueled correctly, or if you didn't fuel the day before and you go do those styles of exercising, you're going to feel that you're really feeling behind the ball here. You feel a little fatigued. So those are things that come into it. So why do I bring this up? Okay, and just a recap of everything we've been talking about. Strength training builds the confidence. This is where you want to develop your self perception of what you do, right? This is where you get an internal dialogue of how am I going to train and how is it benefiting me? Maybe you're seeing some more striations in your shoulder. Maybe you're feeling yourself physically stronger. You get to see yourself in the mirror. You're like, wow, I'm really developing my biceps how I want to, right? So you got start seeing those minor changes that are a big deal for you, right? I would say functional training. This is the feel good workout. This is the workout that makes you feel like you're moving better. You feel better. Injuries are not really a thing here. You get to really work on deficiencies. Maybe you're building plantar fasciitis. You're developing it. So you can work on that big toe extension. We start working out a little bit barefoot. So it works on different details. Then we get into our HIIT workout, our high intensity interval training workout, and this is going to make us feel like we got a good sweat. We feel like it was quick. I didn't have that much time that day, but I was able to squeeze this in. So we have the immediate instant gratification workout. Then we have our endurance training, where this is the zen of fitness. This is where we really tap into that flow state. But again, we don't get the benefits of really developing other areas like strength or really building on the functional side of training. So, some closing remarks I would say is that you got to mix and match your styles of training. You can't just overly become obsessed with one style. You have to complement it. If you're doing strength training, add a little bit of conditioning to it. It's going to improve not only how your strength is, but the duration of how you can go about training. Maybe you used to work out 45 minutes, now you're working out 90 minutes. But again, you have to see your lifestyle. Does your lifestyle benefit you to train in these hours? Do you have enough time to squeeze this in? That's why you have to have your non-negotiables. If maybe you're trying to maybe stay afloat and stay with a certain style of fitness, and you're not trying to really improve on something right now because your schedule is hectic, then understand what you have to pick and choose. If it's the weekend and you really want to focus on something different, I would say challenge yourself. Maybe go for a run. Maybe try something like yoga. Try different things and see how your body adapts. And the way that I like to think about this is the body is a forever adapting thing. It always adapts to whatever stress you put it through. And that idea that you're going to shock the muscles it's silly, right? Because your muscles are going to adapt to whatever you're putting yourself through. But it's important that you have different styles and varieties to really create and adapt to what you can ultimately do in the long run. So this is what we're thinking about. And I would say that I encourage to everyone that is doing this, I encourage you to understand what your body needs and what complements your personality. And understand that your personality might not be on the flow state yet. You maybe you're not ready to commit to running long distances, and that's okay. That's okay. But whenever you're getting bored of your workouts, understand that there's many ways, to approach fitness, and you got to be creative. And me as a trainer, me as a coach, I constantly challenge myself. I constantly try different things because I know that I need it. I need it. I want to move better. I want to feel better, but I also want to work on my endurance. I want to feel strong. There's different styles of doing it. And this is how we like to approach stuff at In Vivo. That's how our coaches think. And this is our approach from a functional standpoint. Your body's capable of doing so much more than what you think. So if you like this style of thinking, if you watch this whole thing, thank you. Like and subscribe, guys. I'm really trying to get this to 500 followers. Right now, I'm at 128. So hopefully, I build myself up. I'm constantly going to be posting more videos, but your feedback is everything to me. So thank you, guys, and have a great day.